Hi there, I am Dani Henderson, and I'm very happy to bring back my friend Trevor Grassi, who's known as a research archaeologist. Recently, he has been back to the Giza platform, and has he got some information for you and other sacred sites on our planet? Trevor Grassi, welcome, my friend. How are you?
Thank you. Doing very well. Thanks for having me again.
Of
It's
course, I
exciting.
can't wait. I cannot wait to see what you've got for us because you've literally just come back from Egypt again, haven't you? What was the whole purpose of you going down there?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of reasons to return to Egypt, and I've actually got some shots from Rome and Greece also on the way home, which kind of connect together this whole historic tour, kind of. But yeah, I had a lot of reasons to return to Egypt. A lot of people I wanted to meet and connect with and learn more from, and try and start setting up basically a documentary project that's going to hit a lot of angles on Egypt and a lot concerning the Hall of Records or ancient archives that are rumored to be stored under Giza potentially. Um, and that's one of the main themes connecting it. But yeah, I chose this time to go back because I was able to afford it, just like by by chance, as it happened when William Brown was going back, who I spoke about on our first interview a bit, and his research and work in Giza. He's been there 25 years. This was his 72nd trip to Egypt, and that kind of gave me the push to go right now when I did. But there was a lot of goals to try and pull together a lot of pieces, and so a lot of this, and then there's also been a lot of current events that are very important happening at Giza that I wanted to touch on. So I kind of have a view of a kind of overview of this trip and some slideshows to share with some sites that a lot of people haven't been to in Egypt, lesser known sites, and also just going to touch on some of these current events throughout. And yeah, so
Wonderful.
that's very exciting.
Excellent. All right, sir. Proceed at your leisure.
Okay, so let me do a screen share. Um, okay, here we go. So here's a first shot of
Mm.
just showing up in Giza and getting to see the Sphinx again. So I wanted to mention first off, like a few weeks ago, we got this huge announcement, which was about the Great Pyramid. And this shot, you can see these two entrances. These are the chevrons. So there's the main entrance, but this is where people go in these days, most often. And that's a tunnel that kind of curves around here and meets up to this descending corridor, actually comes all the way up to these chevrons, but this tunnel was burrowed in. I've got a better picture of that too. Well, this was, I thought here's a better picture. This is called the Alma Moon Tunnel, which comes in and it hits this intersection here between the two. So this is how everyone usually comes in. But this corridor actually goes all the way up to the top. And recently, they just announced more of a space right behind these chevrons. So this is a big, exciting news because it could lead to. Well, first, I'll just show some of these photographs. This is where the Alma Moon tunnel comes in. This goes down to the descending corridor. And this is where it comes up. You go up to the Grand Gallery. So just to give some more context, this is what it looks like when you look down the descending corridor. You can't even see the bottom going down to the subterranean chamber. And then this is up in the Grand Gallery, ascending up towards the King's Chamber up here.
Can I ask you
So
a question? Are these your actual own photographs? Because you were there, you were right there, or these other images
yeah,
of somebody else? Okay. How did
um,
they remove stones? How did they scan the pyramid? Because we have the technology, we can scan any monument above ground, below ground, in the ocean. We've had the technology for 100 years, guys. Of course, that's one of the things that's kept from us, which takes us so long to actually reveal the true history of our planet. How do they remove and how do they know where to remove the stones to find another tunnel? Can you tell us that?
Well, that's actually the Alma Moon Tunnel. I've never really figured out how they knew exactly to pull it around as it turns right into this intersection. I never quite understood how they knew where to burrow in that way, but it did end up connecting. But that was back in 820, the Caliph Alma Moon. So this was a long time ago. They definitely didn't have that technology back then. So that's kind of a mystery to me, honestly. But I'm actually going to show a little bit about this is just one picture of me in the King's Chamber to show what that looks like. But
Whoa.
I have
Hold
these
on.
images.
No, no, go back, please, for a moment. Look at you.
Okay.
You are sitting inside the actual king's chamber with your back
Yeah.
against his sarcophagi. So, can you tell us what does it feel like in there?
Well, this was from the last trip. The last few days I went in there and I got a solid over an hour to meditate and say some prayers in there. I was actually putting some prayers in to ask that the Great Pyramid reveals all its secrets this
Uh,
year because I know that's coming out and I wanted to put some of that energy in there. But as it turned out, this new announcement is quite along those lines. But this is kind of the center of everything. This box, I believe many great adepts or mystics have all touched this, from Jesus to any other number of, very important people in history. I believe they've all been in this chamber and touched this box. Leonardo da Vinci and people like that, even.
mhm.
So this is kind of the center of everything. And I wanted to, put some of my own energy in there to, I don't know, ask for what I think is really coming here. Like I said in our first interview, I think Giza's opening up all its secrets. So
Yeah, yeah. This is wonderful. Thank you. I want to know about I'm sure other people are thinking, what is the material? What is this granite material? Is it made with limestone and dolomite? Like, can you tell us? And
uh,
is the sarcophagus the same material as what the inner chamber is made from?
well, there's a few different materials in the pyramid. Actually, later I'm going to talk some about the limestone blocks on the outer casing, but a lot of the inside is also limestone and different kind of qualities of it, and filler stones and some more kind of sandstone looking blocks in some parts. But most of the interior is all limestone. And yeah, this part of the interesting part about this box is that it can't even fit in through the tunnel where you actually walk in. So this must have been built into the king's chamber from
Mhm.
the start, which is very important and interesting. Um, but yeah, you were asking about the scanning, and I actually have some images of showing how they did do the scanning. So I just want to keep moving here.
Great.
This
One last question because it's important for many people. Was there a lid for that sarcophagus?
There are a few theories about that, but I think that there was at one point because I believe that was used in the initiation ceremony where the pyramid had the final initiation after you kind of work through all these different temples and their lessons. This was the place where you would, by some accounts, you would actually go into the box, the lid would be put on, and you'd have to report on what was happening in the far ends of Egypt in order to prove that you could actually astrally project out and remote view essentially what was outside and leave your body. So I
Yeah,
do think it had a lid. I don't think it was a coffin for someone specifically. I think it was more for these ritual initiations and it also has extreme healing power. Where when the pyramid was on at full energy, I think it could have really healed a lot of things. It still has some of that, but it used to be, I think, a lot more powerful, and it could have
there's
many functions.
Yeah, and the thing is, I know stuff that's going to be coming out on this exact subject inside the King's Chamber. And so I'm letting just people warm up to it so we can gently drip, drip, drop, drop. There was a lid. The lid is missing. And it did indeed close over people going through initiation. We can see that mirrored in some Masonic rituals where they go through their first, second, and third degree. They go into a coffin, for example, and it's seen as a kind of rebirth. So ancient information. So Trevor, thank you. We can leave it there on the King's Chamber, my love, and please continue
Yeah.
with your brilliance.
Well, these boxes are very important. We see them all around the world. Like last time we were talking about it, Cambodia, even, and other places. In Peru at the Coricancha, there's one solid stone box in the middle. But yeah, let's get into this new announcement, because this discovery, actually, the Scan Pyramids team has been working since 2016, and they've been releasing a lot of scans of what's inside, but a lot of them are very vague, like this. Like, we know there's something behind here, and this was from before, a couple months ago. And now we've actually stuck a camera in here and been able to see what's right here, which is the big news from today. Before that, they were saying it was some sort of shape. They weren't sure about the angle or size or anything, but so they were scanning upwards through the pyramids from these different points inside it. And they ended up focusing a lot of their beams like right above the Grand Gallery here, because we could tell there was some big void right up above there. That's one of the biggest spaces that we still haven't seen yet, which they say could be multiple chambers. It could be angled up or down, or it was still very vague because we can't model exactly what it looks like yet. But basically what we're seeing is this new tunnel that we're just getting a look into now potentially connects into other things that could connect up into this very big space that could have all kinds of very important things inside it. So the new, and this was a prediction actually from this French architect, Jean-Pierre Houdin, who is guessing about some of these things that could be coming up off from the chevrons here. This is a closer up view, and this is where they stuck the camera in, which is interesting because they said that no drilling was necessary to stick the camera in, which leads us to question why this wasn't done many decades ago, or why they didn't stick a camera in before if they didn't even have to drill. It's interesting that just now they're releasing this, and here's what it looks like. As it was coming through this tube at the end, the camera came out and we saw this. So this is the first view of what's called the North Face Tunnel. And this is about 10 meters, 9.5 meters going back. And this is tall enough to stand up in. This illustration shows you can actually stand up in here and walk back. So this is extremely exciting because it pretty clearly, there's a lot to see here, that these chevrons do actually extend all the way back. And there's a very good chance that it leads to something else over this stone. We don't know what's back here. But here's another shot where you can see the roof of this tunnel a little better. And all this came out less than a month ago, I think, like 3 or 4 weeks ago, just after coming back. But what's interesting is that Zahi Hawass actually stated that there was one spot on the floor which was not stone, which was dirt and could be dug out or scanned down in there. And he is saying not that this is, as some of the experts were saying, was a weight relieving chamber. He is more saying that he believes it leads to something, which I agree with. And he's saying it's probably the tomb of Khufu, which I doubt, but I do think it's leading to something else. And he made note of the fact that there was this dirt spot which could be dug out and needs to be looked at more. And he basically said in the next few months, we hope to get even further than this. So it's really very clearly seems to be leading towards something bigger behind it, basically. And this is just to remind, what's that?
A couple of things very quickly, because I know we have a lot of slides to get through, but what's so beautiful is Zahi Hawass has been the voice for many years of anything coming out of Egypt. And as we know, Elena Danan has worked with him because she is an Egyptian, or she's a scientific archaeologist. And what Upstairs have told us, meaning what was reported to us from the Galactic Federation of Worlds, who are assisting with the disclosure on our planet, which means telling the big secrets hidden by the few from the many. We're simply not allowing that anymore. Not wishing to enrage the Egyptians with their distaste of women like me, who are somewhat outspoken. But at the end of that tunnel, there is indeed another tunnel that continues to go down, as Elena told, from upstairs. And at the end of the other tunnel is a chair that is technology, which is more advanced technology than we have in 2023. And if nothing more, this will alert and confirm to the people of planet Earth that they have had technology withheld from them on purpose, and it is no more to be allowed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I believe that we could find technology even up in this chamber above the king's chamber. We could find books, we could find Gnostic gospels, even like later things that were put in throughout history if people had the keys to this. And that's very exciting what you're saying, because I mean, I have a very strong feeling that there is more technology that's going to be discovered through this, but there's all kinds of things we could find, and this is really getting the whole world to look at it again and realize there's something coming up with this, which is like we were
Yeah,
saying in our first interview that the Giza complex is a time capsule that's opening right now. I also mentioned this other team, MDPI, that just released these other scans separately where we found all these new huge spaces of potentially chambers all throughout, going up and down and around. And like you're saying, there's some going down here that connect. And this is just, you know, there's endless spaces that could be holding things that could change humanity, you know, the course of humanity and how we look at ourselves. This is another one of their pictures. This one's really good. You can actually see there's, you know, this is the void and the tunnel we've just been seeing, and it does look like there's all this kind of connection up into huge spaces within the pyramid that could hold lots of things. So just to
totally.
recap on that.
So, in
Uh,
terms of Khufu and his son, can you give us just a quick synopsis? Because people may not know what the original thinking behind why was that even made? Why was that Great Pyramid made? Who was it made for, please? What were the names we need to hear?
right. Well, it's attributed to Khufu, who's also called Cheops, but who is the father of Khafra, who they've attributed the Sphinx and the Middle Pyramid to. And this was like fourth dynasty. It was early kingdom, and yeah, I think that Khufu has a lot to do with the Great Pyramid. I think his tomb may even be somewhere nearby. He definitely has his name associated with a lot, but I believe originally it was built much earlier. Um, and some of the things we've been looking at with Manu Safes today. He just came out with this book Under the Sphinx, and he's talking a lot about this character Mary, who potentially was there during the recarving of the Sphinx from a lioness into a human-headed one, and that may have occurred during the time of Khafra, which might be why Khafra is so associated with the Sphinx in the Middle Pyramid and Khufu with the Great Pyramid. Um, I think they had some kind of connection to it, maybe did some work there, or possibly got into some of these channels, at least into some of these chambers. But originally, I think it goes way back earlier and is has many functions, including being a time capsule of a lot of this information, which is encoded into its geometry, and the units of measure give us a lot of numbers that relate this very, very high mathematics, which we're just rediscovering now. So, um, yeah, I guess I'll keep touching on that throughout. But this was another thing that Jean-Charles Moyen posted soon after this happened, remembering his experience with the pyramids. And um, he said he saw ships down underneath, and it's interesting this drawing which he made as I think a 9-year-old, 8 or
Seven.
9 years old.
7 years old, yeah. So let's just
7.
help people. Jean-Charles Moyen is a beautiful being. He has had many different on and off planet experiences, and that have all come, and many come to pass. When he was a little kid, because in France, children are encouraged to diarize their lives, which I think is wonderful. So he's having amazing dreams. His mum and dad totally support him, and he drew this at 7 because now this information is coming out. People like him are putting their drawings online. I advised him, his wife advised him, Elena advised him. We're like, put your drawings out now so that when the information comes out, you know, nobody can say, oh, you just drew that, you know.
Yeah.
So it's so wonderful to map. There's so much
Yeah.
mapping happening. Yeah.
Well, a lot of it comes from personal people actually witnessing. That is a degree of evidence for it. Somebody telling their story. it might not be 100%. You'd have to trust the person, but I think it's very interesting that Jean Charles did have the courage to share this stuff. And um, it's very interesting that it shows this tunnel connecting right up to the left paw of the Sphinx, because this is where John West and Robert Schoch and Thomas Dobecki, they discovered what was likely an entrance chamber to this underground area. So he's not the only one by far that I've heard suggest the idea of ships actually below. And I don't think that's out of the question by any means, speaking of technology. Um, and I was also going to mention this was one of Gary Osborne's images where this was one of the coordinates that was given in what's called the Rendlesham Enigma, where these coordinates came from a extraterrestrial potentially source or somewhere. We're not sure what the source is, but that has this very important information linked to the mathematics of Giza. And I found this very interesting. I wanted to bring it up because, for one, this points right to this anomaly B, which is underneath the Sphinx's left paw, the chamber that John West and Robert and Thomas Dobecki found. And that chamber to this coordinates point has these precessional numbers, 216, which is one of these harmonics, 25, 9, 20 inches between these points, which is the exact number of years in a precessional cycle of almost 26,000 years. And anyway, this line is very much indicated by this coordinate point and this point directly between the two pyramids. What's really interesting about it is that it points off in this direction towards, here you can see that's anomaly B. So Thomas Dobecki and Schoch, they had found, this is an image by Mark Lehner, but I think Gary added in these chambers. So this is the one under the Sphinx's left shoulder, kind of, actually is pinpointed. But in the other direction, basically it points straight off to the Azore Islands, and to Sel Miguel Island, I think it's called, specifically. And this is also a very specific distance from here, which I just thought was interesting because we've been talking about with Elena speaking about Ardana's message. We're hearing that the pyramids are going to open up this year. All this stuff's going to come from the pyramids, and we're also going to be looking towards the islands. So I think this is very interesting. I know I've mentioned Gary a couple times, and I want to talk to him more about this, but I see this all connecting together. So coming into actually on the ground, I want to show overview. Here's the Grand Egyptian Museum, whose two sides triangularly point to the two apexes of these pyramids. But looking closer in, this is right here. You have this wall along the edge here, and this whole neighborhood was just demolished. This is where all these people lived, and everything just got destroyed. I'm going to show some pictures from here, because I think there's definitely, this whole labyrinth of tunnels all under the Giza Plateau, and I do think they extend all the way out into the city. Many of them go many blocks off into the city, and this has been, I've been talking to a lot of different people who have been telling me about different things they think are underground at different points, but this neighborhood is really in focus because it just got demolished. So we're wondering how many tunnels connect into here. And this is what it looks like on the ground. I walked this whole area. That's the wall, and it's just everything's leveled. And so here's a dog walking around. There's a lot of places under this wall where there might be tunnel entrances that connect in. Like I've kind of been saying, I think there is a labyrinth, a whole city kind of underneath there. And I think any one of these tunnels could connect into the bigger complex of what's below there.
When did they build that wall, Trevor, in Cairo?
I think this was like in the 70s or so. I'm not sure actually about that, but the cement wall is on top of these stone walls in places, older walls. I'm not sure on that, but I think this wall was built around the 70s, and it's going mostly around, it kind of goes around a lot further south as well. but yeah, up towards the north end of it, there's an active excavation going on with Mark Lehner is working here. He was there working while I was there. Um, and so they might be finding some stuff over here. He's also working off the southern end of this wall too, in what's called the Workers Village. But I'm hoping that we're going to find more stuff in that area that connects over. Here's another just kind of establishing shot to show the whole Sphinx temple, which I believe there are entrances possibly within here to this underground areas and tunnels that come across over to here from the Sphinx. And there's even some doors back here. There's doors all over this area that are just gated up that are, you can see them, but we don't know what's behind them. We're not allowed in.
If you
So
can
any one of them.
leave that picture there, because it's lovely, because a lot of people don't realize the Sphinx is facing this way, because we always see different angles of her. So again, if we could take our minds back down, geography, weather systems, it is believed thousands of years ago that there was a very different weather system, and we know that to be true because the weather that our planet, she is cyclical. There are cycles of weather. There are many that believe that at the time when the Sphinx was apparently built, which was before the pyramids, according to some scholars, that there was a very lush, water-filled, palm trees, very rich in good weather area. And they based that on, carbon dating, etc., different methodologies for dating. Who knows if they're all totally correct? There have been lots of errors made in every single system, as we know. But what a beautiful thought to look at that and think, I wonder what that really looked like. That temple,
Yeah.
how far down did it go? How was it spread out? What was the lushness like around it? What was the adoration of whatever the thinking was of the day?
Right. Well, I think we're looking back more like 12,000 years ago when even with some of Edgar Casey's predictions, he said that back then the Nile ran in a different direction, or maybe that was before, but either way, that Egypt was a very lush, like more like the Mayan temples in the Yucatan, like a rainforest even around it, very fertile, very not covered in sand, not a desert when these were first built. And I believe the water from the Nile did come up very close to the Sphinx, and was even being moved around, and that there were some tunnels where this water was pulled up to the pyramid and sent back, and this could have been involved in some of the, I don't know, the machinery, let's say, of the pyramid and how it worked, like currents of electricity almost, but using water running through as a kind of energy that's running over, maybe powering things, or maybe running over like hieroglyphs too, which is interesting, like kind of like a Shiva Linga in India, where you'd have water running through this thing, and it's kind of like the water is continuously powering a prayer, or these magical kind of, you know, having
Yeah.
a spiritual effect rather than a technological one. But yeah, so this shows kind of more the Sphinx temple. You see how big these massive blocks are that are just squeezed in perfectly. There's a gate that gives you kind of scale. But this is with William Brown. So I met up with him for the first like week and a half. We hung out a lot, talked a lot about all this stuff. And you can see the wall I showed you coming up to this corner and then going back this way. And yeah, this is a good establishing shot to show how close some of this stuff is to the Sphinx. So these tunnels definitely, I think there's a big hub of a lot of tunnels kind of right around here, and they come off all directions.
This is great. Trevor, thank you so much for bringing this to us, because we're seeing different angles of just like a month ago you were there, literally just the other week, pretty much, right?
Yeah, and talking with William was really amazing. For the most part, what he's doing at Giza, it's stuff that I'm working on a documentary for him for, and it has a lot to do with what's in this area of the demolished village. But mostly, we kind of just talked about this stuff, and we ended up going out to west of Cairo. This is the Black Desert, so. I was planning on going to the Black and White Desert myself, but William ended up joining, and we had a few 3 days basically on this trip to talk about a lot of this stuff. It is like 5 hours west of Cairo, so out into the Sahara, and all these mounds and stuff are just capped with this black kind of ashy layer. It's very strange. And then, well, this is my friend who took us out there, Yusuf Badaway. He and his father Sayed Badaway became very good friends, like family to me. I already knew them online, but got to meet them. And Yusuf took me and William out with our driver Abeda. We went all the way out. This is the oasis where we had lunch one day, but to the black and white deserts. So this was our Jeep. We left the road and started just going into the dunes for another few hours.
Mm.
But this is kind of this threshold where you come over through this gateway into from the black desert to the white desert. And this is some of what the white desert looks like. And it gets other planetary looking. There's beautiful trees out there. It's very old.
Mm.
But you start going in and there's these weird landscape formations that are all just like white, which is so bizarre. It's coming out from this black desert into this white one with these
Is
very strange forms.
what is the material, composite material? Is there salt involved here?
I don't think it's so. I forget. I looked up what kind of stones these were, but they're very mysterious, and I can't remember what kind of stone they said this was. But these formations are very bizarre. I don't really understand quite how they were made. This one, there's a picture of me. I didn't have one without me, but it's pretty epic. This is called the Sphinx of the White Desert. So some of these forms are named because they're so strange.
Mm.
But they're millions of years old, like tens of millions of years old, if not more. Um, so I don't know how this stuff happens. This one's called the chicken and the mushroom because this looks like a little chicken.
Yeah.
Bizarre. I've never seen really formations like this anywhere in the world, and I think they're extremely ancient, and they've been just sitting in this desert. Very strange, but beautiful. And so we actually camped out here one night, and
Wow.
it was very cool because I've been talking to William a lot about the stars, the constellations, how they correlate to the Giza Plateau. So we got to see them as the night came out. This was our camp, and we had a few sleeping tents as well we set up, but it was amazing to just be out here. There's the main tent, totally Bedouin style, Yusuf
Yeah.
and Abeda. Um,
Beautiful. What are the stars like out there? No light pollution. What is it like?
it was amazing. I mean, all the stars we were looking at, especially Orion and Sirius and the Pleiades, they were just right overhead. And we had this whole beautiful dinner, and like we're just, yeah, putting this all together because I've been helping him work on some of these star map correlations he's been working on. So it was amazing, man. It's awesome to have William come out. I didn't expect he would join me on this trip, but he wanted to go out there too. So it was perfect. Um, and then in the morning, we came to what's called the Crystal Mountain, which is also in the same area. And this is what the ground looks like. There were these triangular crystals coming up out of the ground.
Golly.
Unbelievable. And then like this whole mountain was made of crystals. If you can see this, if I can zoom in a little, unbelievable, like a skin of crystal on the whole ground. This was just popping up out of the ground.
Wow.
Like,
Are these
there,
quartz based, Trevor?
what's that?
Are these quartz based?
These are calcite crystals.
Calcite.
Um, yeah, I actually got one. Can you see this? This one is shaped just like a pyramid, not exactly, but has this thing in the front that looks like the chevrons of the entrance to the Great Pyramid,
Oh
kind
my
of.
gosh.
Kind of hard
Wow.
to see. It's like a triangular hole in it. So
Wow.
this one's pretty cool.
You know,
Yeah,
Trevor, that right there, the calcite, there is calcite crystalline properties around our own pineal gland.
yeah,
So yeah, like we are made of what the earth is made of. I mean, there's a, isn't that wonderful to know?
yeah.
This is so exciting. Please
It's
continue. I'm not going to
very
talk.
amazing. I mean, I wasn't aware really that there was a mountain made of crystal. If you go 4 or 5 hours deep into the Sahara, it's just out there. It's amazing. It's beautiful. And there's this giant jellyfish looking rock, which looked
Ah,
like it must have been in a cave at one point or something. I've seen stuff like this in caves before, but very bizarre. And this crazy portal chair that had this, like, you could sit inside this, but very strange formation.
wow.
Um, And this was inside one of the caves we found there, where I crawled up inside here, and there's this inverse kind of dome up in here that you could get into. All of it was very, very, I don't know, it was amazing. Felt like an extremely special place. I've never seen anything like that. So all these sites are kind of around what's called the Bahariya Oasis, which is this just sea of date trees in the middle of the desert, because there's all this water comes up from underground. A lot of it's hot springs, and they pump into pools you can sit in first. But here's what it looks like on the ground with all these, white egrets going on. Got a new feather in my hat from these guys. And then this is what's called the secret pyramid, another place we visited before going back, which is a natural formation, I guess, but could have been maybe modified at times in the past. And there's the view from like halfway up there about. So that's the
Wow.
Bahariya Oasis. And then we came back. This was just a great shot that had this cool rainbow from between the sky and the ground. It kind of all came together coming back into Giza. So anyway, moving along, I ended up meeting up with Muhammad Ibrahim, my tour guide from my first trip, and we had a great kind of lunch. We were talking about setting up my tour for hopefully January that I'm trying to set up with him. And actually, he's going to come up a little later in the slideshow, so I'll keep moving. And then my friend Russ Hudson, he posted something on Facebook about this talk he was giving just a couple of days before it, which I ended up getting to catch. And he worked with the enneagram, which is this symbol. I'll show you right here. This is what the enneagram looks like. But this is a very, very important ancient symbol, I believe, goes all the way back to Atlantis. And it has all this numerology and geometry just worked into it that's kind of like the roots of all what he calls the Western tradition is like Christianity and Judaism and Islam. All the later traditions kind of had a lot of this. What's embedded into this image as their roots, and this goes back. So it was discovered, I guess I'd say, by G.I. Gurdjieff, who is this guy, and Gurdjieff basically he found the pink part of this without the white triangle in the middle. He added the triangle in, but these days this is used as a diagrammatic of different personality types for one thing, which Russ he knows a lot about that and has helped. He's got a lot of books on that and stuff, but it's also the Ennead, the 9 gods or deities of Egypt, and the outer circle being the 10th part of this circle broken apart by 9. It has all this symbolism that I think I'm going to try and get into as I make a new documentary about a lot of this stuff. But here it is on my ankle. I tattooed it on my ankle like 12 years ago, probably. So I got a shot with him.
Yeah.
Anyway, Russ was friends with John Anthony West, and he did these tours with the Enneagram Institute where they were studying this very mystical based private tours that were focused just on Gurdjieff and this symbol. And so that was really great to finally meet him. I never met him in person before. And then, so moving on here, I went to Saqqara. Saqqara had this big announcement while I was there too, where they announced this is called the Waziri Papyrus after Mustafa Waziri, who is the current director of the Supreme Council of Antiquities. So this discovery was made a few months ago, but they announced it while I was there in Egypt. This is a 52-foot long Book of the Dead or Book of Coming Forth by Day. Very complete, very perfectly preserved. It's got like 113 of the different chapters they're all made specifically for whoever is deceased. That the scroll was kept with them. So different people had different chapters put into the book. There's something like 200 different chapters have been discovered in different ones, but this one had a full 113 of them. And now it's up at the Cairo Museum displayed. There's a detail from it, but they also found a lot of other stuff at Saqqara. And this was just to remind me, one of the things they found was the tomb of someone named Mary, who we were talking about in the first thing. I don't know if this is the same Mary. I've seen it can be spelled either with an I or a Y at the end. And sometimes it's a male or female name in ancient Egypt, or it's used within male or female names. But this person was called the Keeper of Secrets, which, if it is the same person Manu Safe today is talking about being associated with the recarving of the Sphinx, then that's exciting because we found that man's tomb. And if it's someone else, then we're starting to see a pattern of the name Mary being associated with the people who have the keys to these secrets. So I think that's important too. There's a little bit more Mary stuff coming up later also. But so I went to Saqqara, and I went there with Patricia Awian, who has the Kemet School of Ancient Mysticism, and another friend I've known online for a long time. And we got to have a great day-long walk around and discussion. And we talked a lot about these vibrational sciences that are used at these sites. And there's spots at Saqqara where you can stick your head into these sections of the wall and you hear vibrations coming from the earth. Amazing stuff, like a rumbling, like it sounds like a jet's going overhead because you're hearing vibrations coming out of the planet, essentially. And a lot of other stuff. I agreed with her on a lot. We got along well. And so the step pyramid here from Djoser is said to be the first pyramid of all. And then this one on the other side of Saqqara is the pyramid of Unas, which is way more destroyed and weathered. But this one's came after. Unas was, I think, the last pharaoh of the fifth dynasty. The fourth dynasty is when we got the Great Pyramids. And so Djoser at the other end of Saqqara was before that even. So this one was after the Great Pyramids. But inside it has these texts, which are very important. These Unas pyramid texts, they're called, which Robert Baval and Manu Safe today have brought a lot of attention to. So I'm going to show quick some of these tombs. These are the Unas pyramid texts. There's a lot of good stuff in here. Cool stars on the ceiling. And to remember, this is the Sphinx stele, the dream stele in front of the Sphinx. And I wanted to show this symbol again right here. And if you can see these little spots that look like ribbons in here, kind of, I think this symbol is this basically a symbol for the Hall of Records. And we see that on the walls here too. You can see these ribbon things. It's very similar to that glyph that's shown on the dream stele. And so there's also a lot of secret kind of connections between these chambers and the Sphinx itself. But one of the coolest things is that when you change the lighting here, you see a hidden picture. So this is with normal lighting. And if you look at this next one, if you put the light right up against the wall and shine it across it, you see these indentations that make a second picture.
Right. It's the ancient holographic technology that's in your thing. Yeah.
So here you can kind of see this king here hidden it within it, at least part of him. And on the other side, you can see even better. This is what it looks normal light. And you can see these ribbon things. And when you shine it from the side, you see this image of the king where it's just gently indented in. And this is very, very interesting because JP just said this same thing. This is the interview with Michael Sala. When he was talking about being in the Grand Canyon, he's talking about Egyptian hieroglyphs all over the walls, and that depending on how you shine the light on them, they had different meanings or they appeared in different ways. So it had basically the same kind of light codes as we're seeing. From how he described it, it sounded exactly the same. Like if you move the light, you get a different image. So I think that's the same kind of encryption method that we're seeing at the Unas pyramid text. So that whole interview he did, this is unbelievable. There's all this rumors about the Grand Canyon for decades. I've been seeing all these articles, supposed images, and it's all been who knows. But as of just like last week, I think this came out. JP, the insider who's been speaking with Michael Sala, basically gave us a first-hand witness account of what he says is, it sounds like a hall of records in the Grand Canyon. There are these tablets written in a kind of Sumerian looking language, but definitely Egyptian hieroglyphs all over the walls of it, which is something a lot of people have suspected. And I've seen photographs of carvings of Anubis in the Grand Canyon, But other than
Yeah.
that, almost no actual evidence of it being there. It was
Well,
discovered
there's tons
like
of
100
evidence. It's
years ago
just,
or something.
there's absolutely all the evidence you could even shake a stick at. It's just hidden from us. Thanks, Smithsonian, for nothing.
Yeah.
Thanks, military, for withholding. So, JP, the military, beautiful man, who goes on missions because what we're hoping that other military personnel will have the courage to come forward and do what JP is doing. This is one of the reasons why this is happening. And
Mm-hmm.
so Brad Olson, our friend Brad Olson, another, I call him great research archaeologist. The man is an intrepid explorer. He'll be a speaker at our upcoming conference. And he was sent an image of a drone shot down in the Grand Canyon that looked like a pyramid. And then Brad Olson, everyone, Brad Olson, beautiful, beautiful Brad. He was then talking online about this. He's about to have a conversation with Dr. Sala soon. And I was happy that Brad was able to bring something forth that now everyone's discussing. It's come from JP, it's come from Michael Sala, it's come from others. And they discovered down in the area, the Grand Canyon area, the location undisclosed, of course, but they could only get there on a boat, a jet, a plane, vehicles, and then a boat. There is a hall of records. It is a storage area where there were many tablets found, many hieroglyphs, pictographs, many different Sumerian cuneiform, all kinds of different beautiful ancient artifacts. And there was a specific military person there that kept his face masked, who took photographs of what he needed to take photographs of, and then left with another unit. All this is on Michael Sala's channel, Dr. Michael Sala's channel. So I think that's all we can cover there for that.
Yeah. Well, like you say, it's the Smithsonian. About a century ago or somewhat, around about there, they kind of someone discovered this stuff, and it got sealed up then by the Smithsonian. And I think ever since they've had really heavy private security around it. So a lot of this stuff has just been protected, and people haven't been able to get to it.
And what are the areas called? What did they name the areas down there? They've all got Egyptian names. Oh, I wonder why. Why? The signs are everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot to be said for the fact that this grid of the ley lines, there's only two real nodes on that grid in the lower 48 states. One of them is right out there by the Grand Canyon, by Area 51, by the Four Corners. That's where one of these vortices is of this energy. And so if the Egyptians came to America, this is the place they would go directly to. They would seek out this point where there's this kind of thin spot in space, and they would basically seek out these points of energy if they did come here. So it makes perfect sense that the Egyptians would go straight there. The other one is basically Miami, where Coral Castle is built, and that would be the other place the Egyptians would go if they came to America. But all that kind of fits together, and it's really great to start seeing some actual evidence of things that are down there. So yeah, that's very exciting. That's very exciting new current events.
Bear in mind just quickly, we're Egyptians from Egypt, but we're talking about ancient cedar races, ancient builder races that wouldn't have been called Egyptians. You know what I mean? They came to advise. Right. Here's a really great showcasing of the technology that we're bringing here, Earthlings, from our brothers and sisters and all the other beautiful in-betweens, but that's for another subject.
Right. Yeah. So I guess moving on, this is the Egyptian Museum of Civilization, which is new. It just opened up in Cairo. And there's a couple things I wanted to show from here quick. These are a bunch of stone artifacts that were carved. And what's crazy is this wall panel that shows the actual dates these are from. And this is from the museum, not me. But here you see they get older and older, from 12,000 years, 35, all the way to 150,000, 250,000 to 2,300,000 years. This is what the museum is saying is the age of these. Either way, I'm just happy to see it going back to 35,000 years, but this is kind of crazy. And Muhammad Ibrahim tipped me off to this, showed me some pictures he got of this, so I found it. that's just kind of bizarre. But this skeleton as well is 35,000 years old. Was buried with one of the stone tools. So we're seeing again these much older dates for some of this stuff. This is a great statue with an elongated skull here of the child. And then there was many sphinxes. This one quite feminine looking actually, but several sphinxes. Um, an Akhenaten statue. I had to get my picture with Akhenaten, but he's of
Love
course
it.
important.
Very important.
And some later stuff like this Islamic astronomical device of some kind. And this great sunset when I came out of there too. But next up, I went to the Citadel of Saladin, which is very interesting because this whole outer wall of this huge citadel wraps all the way around this kind of old Cairo area. A lot of this wall is said to have been made from the white casing, limestone casing blocks of the Great Pyramid. So they were taken off and cut up into become the walls of this citadel by Salah al-Din. And this is very interesting because some people have said that some of these blocks even had hieroglyphs on them or writing, which pertain to the future events or past events or things like that. But there's a lot of, I'll just do a quick tour of this citadel. Inside of it is what's called Muhammad Ali Mosque, this over here. And I went here with my friend Sarah Hussein. She's another great guide that I only knew from online, but she gave me another personal tour of this,
Oh,
which is amazing.
lovely.
My friend Zach Fayette also came with me to this one. I just want to show quick, this is all alabaster, beautiful stone. Um, and there's a lot of the grain of the stone of the alabaster is just amazing, the way they carved all this, but some details. There's a lot of astronomical knowledge in these things, and you see the moon and the sun. These were on all of these panels. There's another moon, but it was interesting because they kind of this is inside the courtyard when you go in, and some of them had no moon, some of them had two suns or a moon and a sun, and there's these patterns going around like these were astronomical cycles being mapped out. Like here there was nothing, and it might have been like a new moon in a lunar cycle or something, but definitely a lot of astronomical knowledge. And then in the middle of this is this fountain where you come to wash yourself before going inside, and all the water from this came up from this aqueduct that went way out across the whole city to the Nile. And that's important. There's a lot of symbolism in this art up here too, I think, inside above the fountain. And then inside, just even more of it, there's these four enormous pillars, which are, like the four pillars of Islam, but also just like the anchor points of the year, solstices and equinoxes, and beautiful construction. There's all this knowledge built into this temple, Sufi knowledge, older knowledge going back in time. There's the central dome, which is just amazing. And yeah, there's even, it seemed like almost pictures hidden in the grain of these stones. This almost looks like a seated figure, like sitting down with their legs and their arm and head, like on a chair.
Yeah.
So I'm almost wondering if, yeah, like maybe the grain was used to hide even more. It's a brilliant way to encode some hidden pictures. And outside, a lot of this radial geometry showing more, I think, astronomical knowledge with these planet-looking balls going around in circles, and lions everywhere. There's a big theme, is the lions. Here's a couple more lions. And as you're leaving, another lions on top of these walls, which I've been saying I think has a lot to do with the lions are always protecting this sacred knowledge that goes back, be it the archives or the Sphinx itself is following that same symbolism, but it actually goes all over the world. This is across from that citadel. There's this giant church that's carved into a mountainside. It's very cool too. But moving along, I ended up actually getting Muhammad called me up and said I could jump on for a day of his tour if I just got over to the hotel and met up with this group. So I got one day on this tour that he was hosting. With Mike Rixicker, who was really cool. I made a few friends on this just one day. But yeah, Muhammad's tour company is actually called Stargate Tours, or it's called Saba Tours, and Saba means stargates because he's been finding evidence of hieroglyphic evidence of like stargates all over Egypt. And this is one of the ones later on that trip after the day I joined them. He and Mike found these two very, very clear stars all over these two gates. This was at Dendera, and they found this together on their Stargate tour of Egypt. Very cool. But anyway, I spent a day with them. We went to the Temple of Bastet to keep it with this cat theme also, which is somewhere I've been wanting to go a long time. And there's some, this was in the museum. There's some of these Jehuti baboon statues as well, which are, yeah, Thoth Jehuti. He's usually represented as the ibis we know, but sometimes he's a baboon or some other things. And
Eye of Horus.
yeah, I remember seeing lately actually something John West was saying about the baboons is that they used to stare off. They'd be seen on the banks of the Nile, just staring across the water. It's kind of like a meditative state, and that may have been one of the qualities that led them to be chosen as one of the representations of Jehuti or Thoth.
You know, Trevor, there was so much attention last year on Thoth, Jehuti, and there are other names for this ancient being too, and also known as a giant. And if we go back to the conference, the Galactic and Spiritual Informers Conference, October of last year in Orlando, Quetzal Shah, the Mayan shaman, who comes from a long lineage of other shamans. I know him personally. I've been to Chichen Itza with him. He, on the stage, as you know, did a beautiful Akuria Mate incarnation or incantation or invocation to focus on opening more of the knowledge of the planet, star portals, etc. And it's so interesting now, you know, less than a year later, there's all this beautiful knowledge coming out from the heart of Egypt. Once, you know, do you know what I'm saying? This is Jehuti and Thoth or Tiote or Jehute. There's different ways of saying that too. Thoth for a lot of people in the Western world will know. And it's almost like with the rumblings and the awakening of this beautiful energy, Jehuti, to now a few months later with you going to Egypt, and then friends of yours, other scholars have come, and everything is being opened and revealed. And there's no putting the lid back on the box. It's never going to happen again.
Yeah, it's coming out. And people are realizing this is, you know, and it may be a specific beings from the past. It may be just a title applied to many beings. It may be a few different levels there, but it definitely is correlated with the third eye and becoming enlightened, like the Jedi we were talking about, the Jed column being the spine. So that's all definitely tied to Jehuti. And he's represented here. This is like a little cat-sized portal Stargate box, which I thought was cute. But yeah, he's connected to this temple just like the rest. And this was one thing in the museum, describing how the Holy Family is thought to have stopped here at this temple, which is interesting because a friend of mine who's worked at this temple a lot had a vision of basically a little child like Jesus playing with these kittens outside of this well at this temple, and with Joseph and Mary kind of above him watching him play. And she didn't even know that basically in the Bible it referenced them kind of coming through here. So I got a picture of that in a second of that well. But this is one of the statues there. This is a statue of Mary Tamun, and that also has the Mary name in it, which was interesting. But this is one of the only standing statues left at this temple, where you can actually see my friend Ali down here, see how big it is. But this is beautiful pink granite. This was just another cool piece there. And I wanted to bring attention to the bees a little bit. There's so many bees, and the Egyptians were some of the first people to keep bees and produce honey and stuff. And it's a very important symbol. And here Muhammad is showing also with these massive heads. They're perfectly constructed, like machine made, it would seem. They're identical on both sides. And this one even more so, you can see the top of a column. It's probably 3 feet diameter here, but you have 8 perfect petals around the top that are identical. I mean, we can't measure the difference. They're perfectly formed. And how do you do that, you know?
Is that red granite?
Yeah.
Yeah, the great conductor.
Yeah, very important stone. It's all coming from Aswan, which is far south down the Nile. So all this is very important. This is what the temple looks like now. It's just scattered across the ground, but so much of this is that red granite or rose granite, I sometimes call it, or pink granite, some people call it.
Yeah.
Very important. And Muhammad's showing here from the top, we can see these Urias cobras. Just gauging from their size, we can tell this temple must have been like the rest of the temples in Egypt, 30, 40 feet tall, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great sound chambers, musical harmonies,
Mm-hmm.
frequencies.
Yeah. This is that well of Christ here where Jesus potentially came and played with kittens when he was a big young boy.
Mm.
So I had to get a picture there. And then we went after Bastet, we went to Tanis, which is where Indiana Jones went with his staff to find the Ark of the Covenant. Um, and Tanis is a site I'd never been to and wanted to see, but again, we had huge blocks used there. There's not too much left standing here, but some cool kind of stuff. I did find in one of the tombs there this symbol, which again looks like the Hall of Records symbol to me. And I'm looking for it everywhere. But yeah, that popped up, kind of a crude version of it. And this was a picture my friend Frank on this trip gave me. He said a friend of his had taken this picture on the day when he had been on a trip earlier, a few months ago, this past October, in fact, when Muhammad did a tour with Nassim Harriman, and they reserved the entire Giza plateau, and they were in all three pyramids, in the Sphinx. They were all doing meditations and sonic vibrations. And somebody took this picture, supposedly on that day, looking at it, sent this to my friend Frank, being like, "Look at the pyramid. This just happened." And this was as they rented the whole plateau, which is very expensive. But as they were kind of singing and putting these vibrations into it, I think this is a real, very real picture from that. So
Beautiful.
very cool to see that. So then this is one of the last things from Egypt before going on to Greece and Rome. This is Abu Ruwash as we started going up here, which is, I'll show you on this map. Abu Ruwash is kind of up here where the pyramids are down here, Giza's down here. But this is one of the higher areas on the plateau. And just while looking from above too, I wanted to point out this down here is known as the Area 51 of Egypt. So this is there's what's called the unfinished pyramid. Here's a close up, the unfinished pyramid here. But this whole thing is surrounded by a military base, and no one can go in here.
Right. Yes, to be expected, sadly.
Yeah. So just pointing that out quick before going up to here. So up on Abu Ruwash, there's one main pyramid that's kind of demolished and destroyed. And as I was saying last time, I think it might represent the star Sirius, whereas Giza is the Orion's belt pointing up to it. But there are all these very new things that were just discovered up on Abu Ruwash, which I got to go see, like all these other ruined pyramids that no one's really known about. And most of this stuff was only discovered a few months ago.
Right.
So this was a very special day I got to have right at the end of the trip, or right at the end of the Egypt segment. And yeah, these are pyramid ruins. And this was a hole. This was the first hole I went down. All these plastic bags, they blow forever and then find themselves into these holes. But I crawled down in here, and basically there's one of these boxes. That's the lid, and this is the box. But you can kind of see the box may have even slid down, and this notch in the roof may have pushed the lid off even, I was thinking, because it's too, where the box is now, it couldn't even fit the lid on it. But this is what it looks like from the top. And I got to sit down in this one.
Oh my God.
I don't know if like barely anyone's ever seen this box ever.
So
I could
where
reach
it,
all the way down in it.
wow. And how tall are you? You're just under 6 foot, right?
something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you're just a little bit tall. I'm 5'8". You're just a little bit taller than me.
Yeah.
So which gives us a good idea of so this is fascinating. So please tell us where this is. What are the composite materials of this box too? And what do you think it was made for?
Um, well, where we are is just north of the Giza Plateau. There's another shot in a second where you can see how far we are from the actual pyramids. But I don't know what this box is made of or what the bedrock here is. We did find actually these layers of crystal in the bedrock above some of these tombs and stuff. This might have been a tomb, considering it was like down this hole. It looked like it was probably completely masked over at first. But it may have also just been another kind of initiation chamber, or, I think these boxes had a lot of meanings or uses potentially. Like there's all these ones at the Saqqara. Um, I think they could be used as uh, psychic enhancers or meditation enhancers or things like that. In a sense, they have this magnetic quality. They could preserve things like mummies or like food even. But they're all generally carved out of one piece of stone where the lid is carved off the bottom. And so when you pull the bottom piece from the same stone and put it on the top, it kind of reverses the magnetism or the force of field. It kind of sandwiches this thing together on itself.
Can you describe for those who are really getting into the whole kind of landscape of Cairo area, where is Saqqara and what's in Saqqara briefly compared to Giza?
Um, Saqqara is just like maybe 15 or 20 miles south of Giza. And then this is maybe the same distance about north, somewhere in that range. So Saqqara is just under Giza, and here we are. Abu Ruwash is just north of Giza. So it's definitely very close. It's within sight. In fact, I can show one of these pictures. You can see how far. But Abu Ruwash is also the highest elevation nearby the Giza Plateau, so it's important. Yeah, here you could kind of see how tight it was up against this ceiling or this top block. It kind of seemed like it'd fallen off somehow. Maybe if this slid down, I don't know. But there was stuff like this all around. You had to watch your step, or you could fall down like a 40-foot shaft. Um, and then there's these tombs that were just cut right down into the dirt. And a lot of this was so important because so few people have seen this stuff ever. This chamber had a door in it, which was cracked in half. There's the other half of the door over here. So check this out. It had these two holes drilled into it, which was for the pins or hinges or locks or something. And look at this hole right here. We have ridges in it, which are evidence of probably a high-speed drill, making a core sample down through this. Chris Dunn has brought a lot of attention to this at other spots. But I got a selfie of this because I might be an original discovery here. I don't know who's ever seen this, but we're seeing machining marks, just like this one I got from the Valley Temple, which is at Giza. So you can see here the same kind of ridges in the carving. Chris Dunn has basically looked into how fast even these drills must have been spinning or vibrating in order to do this. But it's essentially machining marks. So that's pretty exciting. And all this was just carved out like it looked like it was so easy for them to do it. This is one of the most amazing, because this looks like pretty natural, right? It's the bedrock, it looks like, but actually right here and right here is mortar. So this is actually a door that has not been opened, and it's masked just to look like the bedrock. But behind this is probably another tomb, and it's glued. It's like they pulled these stones out and then glued them right back into place. You'd never think if you just walked by this is anything, but this is all crumbly mortar. You could tell it was different. So this is a door into something that hasn't been open for a long time.
Wow.
It's very cool. And then a couple more standing slabs. there's some cool stuff here. Here you can see the Great Pyramids in the distance, so you get an idea how far. Um, and then, yeah, there's even some hieroglyphs in some parts. You can see these feet of this image in one of these ruins. And there's another one of the pyramid edges just ruined. And then over here nearby, you had this channel just dug down into the ground. There's like 120 steps at least going down. And then you walk down here, it's just carved down. You look up, and there's this whole section still there. Um, and then down at the bottom, it was flooded out. So the steps kept going down further towards something, but it's flooded past here. And this is just bizarre. It was like chiseled. You could see these chisel marks all through the walls, but it's a huge job to do that. It was, yeah, very, very crazy. It just looks like a long ditch until you get up to it. And then you go way down. We don't know what's at the bottom. And nearby, there's this other huge tomb carved out inside this mountain, which, yeah, it's just too much stuff to show.
Yeah, let me just pause you there for a second. I know that you know, we want people to digest and really take time to enjoy the photographs. And I know we have some Greek and Roman slides also. It might be better for us to do two parts. The next part would be Greece and Rome, but you need to tell me based on the number of slides that you have left.
Okay. Yeah. Part of me was thinking that actually. Actually, would you mind pausing it 1 second? I just want to use the
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks.
So continuing on, Trevor.
Yeah, so this was the kind of end of the Abu Rawa shots. This was an amazing area down in here. And again, all this stuff that's up at Abu Rawash, these tombs I was just showing, and this stuff, most all this stuff was just discovered a few months before I was there. And it's really only known to a lot of the families that live around this neighborhood. So it's very, very interesting stuff to see all this coming up, especially if Abu Rawash, or that original pyramid in the greater star map of Egypt, relates to Sirius, because it's obviously a very important star. But yeah, I'm not sure if there's any more from this. No, so this is one of my last days in Egypt before moving on, where you can see all these people down here. And this is off to the south of the Giza Plateau, where it's called the Workers' Village. And this is also where Mark Lehner is doing a lot of work, has been working here for a long time. But there's a bunch of people down here this one morning. This is a shot from my hotel where I was staying, the Ramosa Guest House, which is an amazing place to stay. And these people were here because the day before something had gone on, and there was a discovery over here. It had something to do with, I'm not sure exactly, but apparently Zahi Hawass and Waziri, they were both there the morning before making an announcement with cameras. And this was the day after. People were still, there was some action going on there. I'm not sure what that's about, but
I love
again, all this stuff coming out.
Yeah, it is. If you look at the different various modes of transport at the forefront of the photo, we have the camel, the horse, we have the man on foot, and we also have a modern day truck. Isn't it so perfect when we're going through the
tuk-tuk cart?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't see the tuk-tuk. Oh yeah.
Well, it's not quite a tuk-tuk, but a tuk-tuk like cart one of those little things.
Yeah.
But this is over by what's called the Wall of the Crow. And this wall is pretty new too. My friend Zach Fayed, who lived at this, he runs the Ramosa Guest House where I'm taking this picture from, and he became a very dear friend. He's awesome, and you know, he used to go over and play on this hill as a kid. You know, this wall wasn't here at all. That's newer, and this is where a lot of people keep their horses and camels and stuff. And as I've mentioned in the last one, there's a lot of people don't treat these animals right, and I'm trying to bring a lot of awareness to that, and to try and, like, a lot of kids grow up without any better example, and they're whipping their horses like crazy, and they think it's cool, and they think it's like, oh, I'm going to drive fast. And so there's a lot of attention I want to bring to how people treat these animals, which my friend Richard Gabriel is also pretty passionate about. His Giza Foundation, he's bringing a lot of attention to that.
a whole
But
other cultural, societal programming. When I was
yeah,
in Luxor, and visiting, the Temple of Karnak, etc., seeing the thinner, more lean little ponies pulling the horse, pulling the carriage, and then having these great, huge Egyptian men just whipping and beating. And I was so mortified. It was so frightening to see how cruel. Went running up to this giant man and tried to grab his arm. Because I thought this horse was looking at me, and I thought he's going to kill the horse. And the man turned and was quite happily going to whip me. How dare I, a woman, approach, this big brute of a guy who's going to show the horse who's master? I mean, this does happen the world over in various places, but it definitely is very, very in your face in Egypt. And it's
yeah,
very disturbing. Like you say, that it's a program, they're raised to believe this is what you do. And of course, we
yeah.
feel it's not. You're getting more out of an animal giving it
Hmm.
love than keeping it bowed down in fear,
Yeah. I
much
mean, a
like
lot
with
of the
humans.
animals are probably, I think they're okay and they enjoy it even if they're not being hurt. They like walking around and doing some stuff, but yeah, there's no examples of how to treat the animals nicely as much for people who are doing it. And there's some, like my friend Syed, I was mentioning, Syed Badaway, he has this a few camels, which he just loves and treats like his family. And it's
Mm,
awesome. I took one camel ride actually with another friend who I knew that he treats his camels very well. But they are, very special. They've got souls just like humans, and this is one of the few things in Egypt that I think needs some work. So I'm grateful that Richard Gabriel's into that. He's also been working with William Brown. He's been working at Giza for a long time, and Richard is focused on what's called the NC2 complex, which is kind of up behind all the three pyramids coming from the back end of it. But there's all this underground, yeah, these chambers and tunnels that he's been looking at and finding stuff, which is kind of similar in the region of the Cave of the Birds, which was discovered by Andrew Collins. And it's kind of maybe some of the same areas even, but that also got covered up and cemented over and iron bars put on it.
dreadful,
So,
dreadful. Well, we're going to
but
put
I'm
this,
hoping to see some
we're going to put,
like
yeah, we're going to aim to put this broadcast out today. And we'll do a
okay.
part two with your
Yeah,
Greek and Roman
yeah,
Vatican information.
yeah. That makes it much easier. It's a much better idea because I don't want to cram all this. There's a lot at the Vatican. There's so much symbolism that ties back to this also, and the theme of the cat, the lion, being this symbol of that's placed above these archives and above this sacred knowledge and hidden records that goes right on through Greece to the Vatican,
Mhm.
going through history. So yeah, I'm just going to conclude Egypt here and then just talk a little bit. This is actually my closing shot, just of see the Sphinx again from the Egypt section. So yeah, I'd rather just kind of well, here's one last shot, and I'll close the screen sharing so we can talk here. Um, yeah, the really exciting stuff has to do with all of this opening of these areas underground, the opening of finding all this new tunnel straight into the Great Pyramid, all these potentials for tunnels in the village that was demolished that could have openings into the whole. Like I say, I think it's one big thing. If you go down deep enough, it all connects. I think we've heard it called the secret city, um, secret chambers, hall of records. I call it more like a secret world that's down there. So I think a lot of these potential openings that we're seeing now could lead into much bigger spaces underground. And yeah, with Elena talking about this report from Ardana, I forget if that's General Ardana or something.
High Commander Ardana.
High Commander. Yeah, that's very interesting because obviously she was saying earlier this year that this is the year when all this stuff is going to come out. And that even was after we had our first interview. And that's what I said. I said, there's no way, whatever, whoever it is, however it happens, there's backup plans for backup plans for backup plans. This is a time capsule that has very important information for the world, And the people who designed this thing way back when, even if they were us, they had a design and plan that would not fail. Like this stuff is designed to open up one way or another. So we really see that coming to a climax here. And with the new North Face tunnel into the pyramid is very exciting, especially since, yeah, like Elena pointed out, Zahi somewhat went against the word of some of these other specialists who were saying that it was going to be that it was just like to relieve weight from off of the descending corridor. Doesn't make sense. This is a very nice arched ceiling. It's like big enough for someone to stand up and walk down. Zahi was more like, no, this is leading into something else, and we're going to discover it in the next few months, is what he said. So they're going to have to move some of these stones to get into that tunnel, but hopefully it'll be entered in a way where nobody can sneak in there beforehand and pull stuff out or change things. And hopefully we will, as a whole world, be able to look into whatever the next chamber is. And yeah, from some of the research I've done about what could be in the Great Pyramid, whatever it is, I think it's going to be very, very world changing.
It will progress. It will progress humanity, and it will, among other things, give humanity back its own natural technological truths and recognize how absolutely beautiful and incredible us humans are, humanity as a whole. There are a lot of people. I know that you're very connected to the Ra material, the Ra collective. And these are many people in this day and age now who have a heart opening for Egypt. This is past life connection. This is soul vibration, knowing, recognition, whether it's past life or not. And there are so many people connected to the law of one material who are just determined that the secrets of Egypt, you know, and Greece and Rome and everywhere actually, but there's a lot of more focus on Egypt being a real catalyst for change, a real collective awakening. That is, without exception, opening up. And I like the fact that Zahi Hawass has been an authoritarian and has kept, whether he was advised to or not, who are we to really say, but that he went against and said, no, actually, there's more to be found here because it is time. It is time. And for you to say too, let's not allow a person or people to go in and rob the grave, rob the treasures from us. That's an old model that no longer works. And, you know, with that, the other information this year that comes out is more on Atlantis. And I would love for somebody, good, honest people team with a boat. We know where one of the final fallings of Atlantis occurred in the seas of Florida. And I want to take a boat out there and scuba dive with cameras, like full on, so nobody can take it from us, the people. And there are people that know exactly the coordinates. That includes the military know the coordinates. It's like we, the people, scrabble around trying to discover. And actually, the military factions largely know where all of the great mysteries are, all of the great wonders are.
Yeah, I have to say the place off the coast of Cuba, the submerged city there that has got a lot of attention, which was discovered by Paulina Zalitsky, Canadian woman who is kind of credited with first discovering it. But there's rumors there also from people that the U.S. military found it back like in the 60s or 70s, and they actually went down and tried to took all this working Atlantean technology out of it, which might be still kind of in military hands or something.
Yes.
But yeah, what you're saying is really ringing true. I mean, from yeah, you know, at first you mentioned the Ra material. This was something that stuck with me from Edgar Casey in one of his readings. He said that basically the Hall of Records could never really be opened by anyone other than the children of the Law of One, which is this obscure phrase to me back then. It was the first time I'd kind of heard that, but it gave me a lot of faith that, you know, as hard as they try, the negative groups won't be able to penetrate into this stuff between these vibrational barriers, which are often called curses, but these are energy barriers around places that people who are not of a certain frequency should not be able to enter into. And so this is, you know, I think a lot of these authorities and the secret mafias of Egypt are trying to enter into places they can't get. And so that's kind of built into the plan too. Like we know Elena went kind of on a different vibrational level when she actually entered into see some of the things she saw there. Not the time when Zahi invited her in, but and again, Zahi is such a pivotal character because he's been controversially posed against a lot of the independent side of things and supporting this academic timeline rather than this alternative one more. But he's shown a lot of signs of trying to do the right things at different times, and it seems like he's potentially coming around to trying to say what he really believes is going to happen. And even if he's saying that we're going to find the tomb of Khufu in the pyramid, at least he's saying we're going to find something beyond this. You know, I don't think it's going to have much to do with Khufu, but it could, because even in his time, he could have made it in there. But even still, I wouldn't say it proves that he built it. But between those couple things, I want to point out just on what you said too. It is connected to the Western Hemisphere again in a lot of ways, between the Grand Canyon, between this Florida, Miami area, and the place in Cuba, which is probably in Edgar Casey's story, one of the other halls of records, which has identical technology and records of Atlantis to what is under the Sphinx. And what's very exciting about this too, I kind of been holding on to this, but there is one of the other records which he said would have identical contents to the one under the Sphinx, is at Piedras Negras on the border of Mexico and Guatemala. So this site is very deep in the forest, and you have to go up this boat a few hours to get there. It's been hard to get to, and you know, up until the last decade or so, there's bandits and stuff on the river that would rob your boat. It's just kind of becoming accessible. And in the last couple of years, there have been a few discoveries of things underground there. So yeah, I don't want to put any pressure, but I've actually been talking to Quetzal Shah about maybe joining me on an expedition to Piedras Negras. So this is, if it is the same contents of the halls of records in off the coast of Cuba and in Egypt, it could be the only hall of records that is not guarded by Egyptian authorities or like close to a mile under the water. So yeah, I'm kind of trying to plan a little expedition towards that site too. But the idea is that all these halls of records may open up at once all across the world, even in Asia, and they might all show the exact same things. So what's in Mexico, what's in the US, what's in Egypt, I think they're all basically opening up right now, and they are all going to show us a very different story of history, which proves itself because it was designed that way to prove itself and correlate to the others. So yeah, that's the bigger story we're following here, and all these announcements are coming together with it. This new stuff in the Grand Canyon is so exciting because I've been following that a long time and waiting for something concrete, like an actual witness account. But yeah, I have
Now we have it. Now we have it through our
big
beautiful,
expectations.
yep,
Yeah.
JP. So again, those in the military who are waiting and wishing and wanting, and you're living under the threat of having your pension removed from you, we understand that. Of course we do. Nobody needs to fall on the sword. There's enough people out there now shining the light on all the truths of the true history of our planet. Another reason why we're having our beautiful Galactic and Spiritual Informers Connection Conference in Florida of this year, October 20th, 21st, and 22nd in Orlando, so we can bring these people into the mainframe without being censored or getting shut down online, and stand strong in truth and love for humanity and share the true history and the hidden secrets. Trevor Grassi, yeah. I want to come to you for final words. I look forward to our second part this week on Greek and Roman mythology and real artifacts and symbology and truth. But please, over to you, sir.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, there was a couple of last things I'd mention is that pretty much I'm also working on making a big documentary series at this point because I got almost 40 gigabytes of photos and video from Egypt. I got interviews with a lot of people I've been meaning to meet. So that's coming soon. Hopefully I'm going to put out the first episodes of that. But this is going to be a long format story of a lot of the stuff I was writing in my book. And then I'm also working with Muhammad on trying to set up this tour for hopefully January, which I hope would be pretty exciting too, because we're going to try and get to a lot of all the sites, all the main temples and pyramids, and a lot of private permissions in places. So I'm discussing that with him. That's also exciting. But yeah, I think this was quite a long presentation, so I'm glad we cut it in half. And hopefully soon we can come back to seeing all this. There's a lot of symbolism at the Vatican that ties it together, and a lot of this stuff that shows that a lot of these records and archives might be associated also with the Vatican, and a lot of it might have gone there. It's also underneath all these lions, like sphinxes and actual sphinxes from Egypt, and a lot of this red granite from Aswan is there in Rome now. So yeah, I guess we'll just not try and go too far tonight. We'll take it up from there next time we meet. But I'm so glad I got to get on here again with you, even with computer issues being. But yeah, it's great to catch up a little bit on some of this stuff and just remind everyone this is coming out. It's coming out from all over the world, and it's very exciting. And I think we need a lot of attention. We got to be looking at the pyramid and making sure everything's going smooth, because yeah, like I said before, they do that. They'll get in there, they'll take everything out, and then they'll be like, we're opening this door for the first time on camera. It's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
You guys took all this stuff already and you're trying to hide it.
Mm-hmm.
But this corridor going into the Great Pyramid is exciting because it'd be very difficult for them to get in without us seeing that they'd already gotten in. So so I think, yeah, as a world, we gotta keep our eyes on this and keep hoping that we get a fair view of what's actually going on. But I think no doubt we're going to be seeing into the underground of Giza soon and into the Great Pyramid, and this will change the world drastically.
Yes, it will. It will indeed. Trevor Grassi, darling, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for putting in the work, for being boots on the ground in Giza this year, just a few weeks ago, and bringing us the
A
most
pleasure.
up-to-date information. Yeah, it's so helpful. It's so helpful. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
And and to you guys out there, Trevor and I will return within the next 7 days with the second part. You can keep an eye on my channel, and we'll let you know when that's coming out. We look forward to bringing that to you, and wishing you all a beautiful rest of your day and night. And I send you my love, and I'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks so much.